Okay, we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Focus and Flow, the ADHD success stories in accounting. This is a monthly series where we feature the inspiring stories of professionals with ADHD in the accounting industry and who have been able to tap into this unique strength for success. And today we have the amazing Linda Lee-Hahn. I hope I pronounced that
Yeah,
correctly. Yeah, that's the partner at Olsen Hahn Accounting, and she's here to share her story how she has been navigating ADHD. And Linda, it's so great to have you here with me today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, I mean, ADHD is such an interesting subject to like talk about, especially in the accounting industry, right? So, do you mind walking me through it for you? How was childhood like for you? What were some of your earliest memories growing up?
So I wasn't diagnosed till later in my life. So is my earliest memories. I don't have any typical ADHD tendencies. I wasn't the typical jumping off tables type child. I was more just had this weird tendency of organizing my room. So when I had to clean my room, how I would do it, I was fully take everything out of my room, every single thing in my room and re-put it back in. That's how I would clean my room. So it was just a weird, almost OCD like tendency. I had good grades. I loved school, so I definitely wouldn't have thought that I was ADHD, and maybe I just didn't have it at that time or whatever it might have looked like. But yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Would you say that maybe that's the attention to details, that organization kind of thing, did it affect maybe your relationship with your family, your friends, or anything like that?
Um, Not back then. No. I think just sorry. What was your question on that one? I went blank.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I asked that. You mentioned earlier, like the earliest memory you had was organization, attention to detail. And you know how some people can be very finicky with things like that, right? So I was asking
Mhm.
if that has ever like caused like a rift between in your relationships, maybe with family or friends.
Nope, no. Actually, I think I'm more relaxed because just sometimes I get anxiety when I try and have it too much, and I don't want to overdo it. So I just kind of say,
Yeah,
well, whatever, it doesn't matter. So
amazing.
sometimes I'm not as attention to detail for like putting things in the right spot as I would like to be because the anxiety of it overwhelms me too much.
True, true, amazing. So, at what age did you like actually like get the real diagnosis for ADHD, and was it an official diagnosis? Did you go to the hospital or you had to see a therapist? Can you just walk me through that process?
Yeah, so I started dating somebody in my early 20s that has very obvious stereotypical ADHD, and he was medicated as a child. I started going through the later stages of my degree for accounting at that time, and I noticed I was really struggling with finishing courses and getting through the coursework. And he had ADHD, so I was like, well, my symptoms are mirroring a lot of what he's going through. So I made an appointment with a psychiatrist and I did all the testing for ADHD, and I was diagnosed right away and put on medication at that time. And I almost feel like the testing everybody would test for ADHD, so I'm not necessarily a pro on the testing, or and maybe it's evolved since then. But
Mm.
I just found that I don't know who can look at a screen and wait for the dot to move and sit there and feel, you
Yeah,
know, attention at the time. But
yeah.
I feel like regardless if I have it technically or not, or if it's a real thing, I have the
Mhm.
tendencies. And I all of the strategies we're going to talk about later all support how I get through my workday and how I achieve the things that I do. So regardless of what the label is on it, it's still
Mhm.
tendencies that I have.
Wow. So now bringing it into accounting now, you're a partner, right, in your organization, in your firm. So how do you manage ADHD in a situation where you have to be very detailed, like your attention has to be 100%. You can afford to miss a number, you can afford to miss a deadline. How do you
Mhm.
manage ADHD in that line of work?
So ironically, when I used to be an employee, I took a test at the time. It was like a personality test, and
Mm.
one of the things, word for word, it says likes to conquer a task and then delegate it. And I
Ooh.
thought, that's a horrible feature for somebody who has no people underneath them at that time. So truly what I do is I'm really honing in on what I enjoy doing and what gets me in that zone of genius.
Mm.
And so just the main thing is I'm making sure to make notes of everything a task entails in case I do delegate it.
Mm-hmm.
So I really try and conquer the task. And then if there are things that I'm like, okay, I'm really noticing I'm slipping now that I'm doing this task more often, and this isn't something that quote unquote lights me up. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
delegate that task. So if I notice that, my attention's not going at as much as I need to on that. And having a second reviewer helps for every part of the accounting, regardless, right? So whether it's extreme attention to detail, but payroll is super important to have somebody extremely detail oriented. So I always have somebody just second look at it.
Amazing. So I need you to walk me through this now. Is there like any like a specific strategy or a tool that has helped you in staying organized or productive? I mean, like you mentioned, okay, delegation. For some people, they like to sit in silence for like maybe 5 minutes to get their thoughts together. Some people, oh, they need to travel. Some people, they need to like work out, exercise, or do anything like that. So what's like your own strategy that works for you?
So a lot of it is a lot of things going on in my head. So
Mm,
I took a breathwork certification, so I'm a breathwork facilitator,
okay.
and that works for everybody, especially entrepreneurs. I think just taking a moment and getting out of your head and into your body, so utilizing the power of your own breath, whether it's meditating, yoga, or just doing breathwork techniques, has helped a lot. Working out every day is super important to me for my competitive side of myself. Um, so that's something that just like gives me that boost of like I accomplished something. But if it's in the moment, if I'm doing a task and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm super overwhelmed, a pen and paper is just like my saving grace, is just get it all out. What am I thinking about? What's overwhelming me? And then just kind of get it out of my head, right? And then it makes so much more sense. And sometimes it's reading it out to another partner or employee to help kind of um, evaluate what's happening and see if I'm missing anything. And that mind blowing helps so much, just a pen and paper.
Amazing, amazing. So you'd say there's a connection between this strategies and your self-care routine, right? Are you going to say it's the same thing? Like the same way you care for yourself in building a strategy is the same kind of self-care routine you've built for yourself?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So if there's one thing that's what how should I say this? If there's one particular thing you always do every day, like it is always in your to-do list every day, what's that particular thing?
I think it's just going through my task management program,
Mm-hmm.
financial sense. Just making
Yeah.
sure that I caught all the things that are on my list and
Mm-hmm.
things that I might not have gotten on my list. I kind of like to go through it to make sure like what's upcoming, what's going on, and then write it out separately. I know it's a second step, but it just reiterates like this is what I'm focusing my day on.
Yeah.
So it's just double checking like, did I miss anything? Did something come up while I was working and not paying attention,
Yeah.
kind of thing? So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So would you say that ADHD has contributed positively to the work that you do and your approach to problem solving?
I would hope so. Sometimes when you're in the deep of it, when you're just
Mm,
not able to focus, it's just not one of those days. I would say no, this is a hindrance. But I feel like that's where I get my superpower of being able to
mm,
focus for long periods of time as well, right? So sometimes it's a hindrance, but also when you get it to work in your favor, it really lets you, the sky's the limit on your
Mhm.
business and the things that you can work on and get done. So I would say it's a twofold, especially when you figure out what supports you in your journey too, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that those are priority.
Wow. Some people would say that when they're in that zone, like ADHD zone, it's either they're like hyper focused on one thing. They can spend 6 hours on a particular task and ensure that it gets it done. Will you say you experience that too, where you're just zoned in on a particular task, like blocking all of that
Mhm.
things?
Yeah, like you lose track of time, you have no idea what time it is, and it honestly feels like the hardest thing to pull yourself away from it. So I have two
Mm,
little kids, so once it's my time to like finish work, um, it like physically doesn't feel good. Like it's very uncomfortable to stop and like switch gears
mm,
and switch things that you're doing. But it also feels really, really good when you finish too, right?
mm.
Whatever the task you were working on at that time or figured out whatever thing you were struggling on. So it's interesting, that's for sure.
Amazing. I sometimes I feel like people with ADHD are like they have superpowers because I have experienced some and I've seen the kind of results that they give. Because I used to work with like a very creative guy. He had ADHD, and whenever this guy is like zoned in, he gives us
Mhm.
like amazing results. And there are also times when we have to like chase him around to get things done. So, so
Yeah.
I'll
Yep.
say it's a superpower. So bringing this into the workspace now, how do you think maybe employers, especially in the accounting industry, how can they be more inclusive and supportive of individuals with ADHD?
hmm I think it's just the accountability is super key, right?
Mm,
And so keeping on top of what did you say you were going to do, or what was the tasks that you were assigned, and have they been done? Just so that the procrastinating side of your that personality doesn't keep going and extending. And then also just knowing what are their strengths, right? So
mm,
um so one of the, even regardless if they don't have ADHD or not, I find it very helpful to kind of move things around as much as possible to support their growth and support things that they're really good at and they really enjoy. I know that's not
mhm.
always the case. You can't always have as an employee everything that you
Yeah.
love to do at all times. um, and giving them grace as well, right? Like keeping in
Mm.
constant communication of like what's working and what's not. I've noticed that this was really hard for you. In what way? Why was that hard? Like what ways can we work on that to make sure that this isn't a hindrance for you?
True. And I think it's a two-way street because most employers won't even know that their employee have this particular thing. Do you understand? So if employees can be more open about their conditions, okay, I'm going through this, I'm going through that, I feel like it would make work much more easier, like much more
Mhm,
easier. And I actually totally agree with the part of accountability. It makes the
mhm.
work so much easier. So has there ever been a time for you where you felt so overwhelmed, like you felt so overwhelmed, and how did you manage situations like that?
Especially at the beginning of my ADHD journey is just like trying to figure out what direction to go and how to not look at it as like a hindrance of, well, I can't get it done because I'm procrastinating, and there's so many things on the list and I don't emotionally feel like doing any of the things on this list at this time. It's really just your body feeling um, mentally overwhelmed is generally what it is, and it's taking the time to take a moment and being okay with 30 minutes or an hour just like walking away and coming back. And sometimes that's not always, you're not always able to do that. So usually, like I said, I utilize breath work or write it all down and get it all out of my head and really just try and get down to, okay, this is fine. I can do this. I have confidence in my knowledge and my
Mm-hmm.
abilities, and I can power through this. I'm going to do the Pomodoro technique and just put a timer on, and all I have to do is work for 25 minutes. It's going to suck, but let's just go. And that usually helps. So,
Yeah, amazing. You're the second person mentioning the Pomodoro technique, and it's so beautiful to see uh, a lot of people even share the same technique, or there's just this link between how you manage yours and how someone else manages theirs, and it's such a beautiful thing to see. So
mhm.
thank you once again, Lina, for sharing your story with us. I mean, it really means a lot. And before we just wrap things up, what has been like a recurring misconception about ADHD that you've heard that you just want to put to rest right now and say,
Yeah.
oh, it's not true. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I think the main thing is it doesn't show up as the crazy can't sit still kid all the time. There's so many
Mm,
different types of ADHD, and it doesn't show as the predominant way that you think it might show up. So just because someone says, "Hey, I have ADHD," and you might not believe them because of their symptoms, I think just knowing that regardless of the title of it all, I think moving your body and being um, more in tune with your personality and your needs to make sure that you're in the most productive environment you can be in is regardless the most important thing. So
mm,
just knowing
mm,
that in itself is going to be helpful for the
mm,
success of your employees or for you yourself.
mm. And the amazing thing with conditions like this, I mean, I won't really say it's a condition, it's like a superpower, in my opinion, is that it doesn't really show up in the way people expect it to. I mean, if you bang your head on the wall, you have like maybe a fracture or something, so you have to wear a bandage. If you scrape your knees, you have to like use something to treat it. So it doesn't show up in the way people would expect it. And I just believe that with someone like you, Linda, sharing your story, it just brings like an interesting perspective into the conversation, which I really, really appreciate. Thank you so much. So, on a final note, what advice would you give someone that is currently struggling with ADHD? Because we have a lot of firm owners who don't even know they have it, right? But they are constantly in that cycle of, oh, I need to get work done. They are constantly distracted. Or even for people that they know that they have this condition, right? They know they have ADHD. What advice do you have for them to manage it or even get through that phase without being tired or frustrated?
I think reaching out to a psychologist, just having somebody to talk to about the things that you might be struggling really helped me. They can give you a variety of different techniques to try and do a trial and error basis on. And if you're not wanting to go see someone to have that second opinion, just writing down tasks that you're noticing that you're procrastinating on, because there is a trend in them. Usually there's certain type of tasks or there's a certain reason why you potentially are procrastinating, and kind of diving deeper into that, just really a self-reflection, because this is honestly just something that is all within you and that you're holding yourself back in, and just finding a way to navigate through that's going to be really helpful for your success.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Linda. Okay, one bonus question. How do you unwind? Because I know being an accountant, running a firm can be very tasking. So what's your method for unwinding from getting away from the busyness of the day-to-day demands?
CrossFit. CrossFit. And
I love it. I love it.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you for sparing time to share your story with us. And I'm so sure that for our viewers that would be watching this interview, this conversation, they will definitely have a new perspective into not even just managing ADHD, but maybe being empathetic towards people that actually have this. So thank you once again for sharing your story with us.
thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you. So I'll be stopping the recording now.